Naomi, welcome to the podcast. It's lovely to have you on. So we first met about a year ago now, just before all this craziness in the world happened in Perth, and you were over there playing a bit of cricket. And unfortunately, now you're stuck in London, where the pandemic's going pretty nuts. So, how have you found the lockdown in the last 12 months and just everything, whether it's on and off field?
Yes, thanks for having me. It's been an interesting year, 2020. Like you said, I started my year in Perth and getting ready for the season, coming back home in April when, on my return, flights were affected and it was locked down straight away as soon as I came back. And we didn't really know if we had a season at all. And also the professionalism of the women's game was kind of, we weren't sure if it was going to happen or not. There had been a lot of talks last winter about professionalising the domestic structure of the game. So there was a lot of 25, 26-year-olds wondering what on earth to do with life at that time. I was essentially unemployed. I had no job. And so, yeah, it was quite difficult at that time. And then, things started to positively unfold. Ended up getting a contract, and then the announcement that we were going to play the RHF trophy, so the Rachel Hayhoe Flint trophy, which was awesome to play in. It was such a good experience to get some cricket in and also play with my club team and just have that kind of that gel together and that social aspect of the game too. And then we started the winter a bit on and off. November we restarted into a physical block, and then it was another lockdown in November, so then we had to adapt back to Zoom sessions and strength sessions where you can. And again, thankfully, just because we were professional, we were allowed to go into the gym a couple of times a week. So, I would never have had that before, which was a massive bonus. Then we restarted some cricket in December, and then we had another lockdown. So now we're back where we are now. But thankfully, again, because of the elite structure, we're allowed to train. And, I'm really grateful to being a professional cricketer now and having these opportunities, because I know a few of my friends who have not really hit a ball for 3 or 4 months. So, it's a difficult time, but I think I'm very grateful to the opportunities now that I have as a professional cricketer.
That's unreal, and congratulations on your contract. I know it's something that you've dreamt about for a long time since you first started playing, but you also definitely just brushed over the uncertainty that you had when you flew back from Perth into London. Like, you actually had no idea that professionalism was coming, and I suppose the courage to actually sit in that uncertainty and have no idea, rather than chasing or not really chasing, I suppose, but going after a more secure job or waiting to do something that's a little bit safer. And I know we're both from an Indian background, and the challenges that come with that, in a lot of the times your parents or people around you in your community are always telling you to choose a safer option or do something that's always been done. But you've made the decision to chase after your dream when there's no guarantee there was even a professional contract at the end of it. How did you manage that growing up, and what were your parents like in terms of that transition from, hey, I'm just going to play for a bit of fun, to, no, this is a serious career?
I think I was a late starter, to be honest. I played a lot of cricket when I was younger for a boys' club, then joining a women's club, and then going through the women's pathway. But it never really hit me that I wanted to do this a bit more full-time till about 18 years old, when I got to Loughborough University. That was the first time I had a hint of what a professional setup looks like. So with gym, prehab sessions, cricket sessions, one-to-one sessions, that was the first kind of moment of realization. I thought, I really want to do this. And it was quite easy, because I was living away, to concentrate on that and also still balance a degree. So I was always pleasing my parents up until about 21 to go and get a degree and get an education behind me. And I think the real turning point where I just kind of said to them, I will really regret not trying when all these people keep saying I've got all this potential, and if I get to 30, 35 and haven't even tried, I'll really regret it. So they let me kind of go off to my first trip to Australia in Melbourne, and I just dedicated 6 months of cricket and that was a massive turning point, and I kind of woke myself up to knowing what potential I did have. But I'm not going to lie, there's been struggles the last like 5 years as I've been growing up, trying to have a job, trying to train. I've never really had a full-time job up until now, I think. And yeah, it's a constant battle, but the more that they say I can't do it, or that I need to be safe or comfortable, the more that I push through that, and it kind of spurs me on. And at the end of the day, they are proud, and they're very supportive, but I think they just worry as parents that, is this really secure, and is this how, they're not sure that this is the way to build your life for the future. They only know one pathway. So it's taken a lot of education to for them as well. So that's why we've constantly had battles, but I think we're in a good place now. Sometimes when we have conversations, it's a lot easier to confide in them about my struggles as a cricketer.
Yeah, that's unreal, and certainly difficult for someone like yourself to do. But at the same time, you should be pretty proud, because I think what you're doing is leading in the next generation and making it easier. And I've certainly seen that, like coaching at the moment. You look around the grade cricket, state cricket, underage pathways, and there's so many young Asian girls playing, or people from all sorts of backgrounds, that cricket's not even a big sport at all. And that diversity, and it is tough. Don't get me wrong, but I think what we're doing is making a big difference down the track. And I know you mentioned that your parents allowed you to come over to Australia. You've been here a couple of times now. So Melbourne was the first one for Paran Cricket Club. And how did that sort of travel away abroad and fully dedicating yourself? What were the main learnings you got out of being in Melbourne?
I think I'm going to use the phrase finding myself in this first 6 months, one of those kind of gap year type things. But, when I went abroad for 6 months, it was kind of the first time I flew anywhere by myself. So there was a lot of unknowns, a lot of responsibility I had to force myself into, a lot of independence that I had to grow up and quickly learn. And all these things were doubts that my parents and even my brother had, like, can she actually do this? Like, is she, ready for this kind of, this challenge? And, just being by myself, I had all this time to sit and think about who I was as a person, what I liked, what I didn't like, how I liked to, play the game cricket-wise, what type of player I was, how I like to interact with people, socially. My skills at that time weren't very good. I'd get very nervous and very shy in front of new people, and I'd always throw myself into those situations, but I'd be like struggling inside, like really I get burning ears or red cheeks when I like talk to new people. So that all that experience, I learned how to deal with it, and it was one of the best 6 months I've ever had in terms of learning all those skills. And I'd encourage anyone to go and put themselves in another country and see how they cope, and you'll be surprised like how much you learn about yourself, and how much those skills you take forward into your next part of your life.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because most people I've spoken to, that idea of finding yourself, or actually taking the space to find out how you want to play or more about yourself off field, it happens later in their career rather than earlier. So quite often, especially in Australia, we get thrown into the professional space. You're like working, you're training, you're doing all of that, but then almost everyone I've spoken to has hit a point where they've needed to take a break of some capacity, do exactly what you've done, and then they come back with a lot more space. So I find it really cool that you've done that early, and it's potentially a positive of not being thrown into the professional structure straight away. But you did talk a lot about being really nervous and shy and a little bit anxious prior to going over. And I know since you've done a load of work in the mental space. One of the equations we like to use, and I've talked about this podcast before, is your end performance is your potential, which is what you work with your skills and your physical training to build up, minus the interference that's in your headspace. And I know that because you've recognised, I've been nervous, I've been shy, going to Melbourne helped me overcome this. What have you been doing since then to help decrease that interference that gets in the way?
I think from that time, that was the first time I started writing things down. I had no structure, but I just just wrote whatever I felt at that time. And it's something that the more I'd done the journaling side of stuff, the more I started to become aware of that there was these patterns that kept popping up, my massive one at the moment is, I call it the 80% one, where I'll get so close to something, and then I'll pull back because I just want to feel comfortable, or I want to feel a bit more secure. And all these kind of, just by writing, I've figured those patterns out. And it happens in very small examples. If I'm listening to a song, for example, I'll change the song before it's over. I don't let things finish. Like, those things kind of pop up all the time. And just by writing things down, a tool that I used to improve my confidence was writing, self affirmations, positive statements that I probably never believed. One of the best examples I can give is, I finished playing for Surrey Stars after 2 years in the Kia Super League, and I had no team, no connections with any other team really. And I just said to myself, I'm going to just write, I'm going to play for Western Storm. And that was in December. And, I started believing it. I started writing it down every day. Again, I still didn't have any connections. And then all of a sudden in February, I had a message from the coach, Trevor Griffin, and he said, do you want to come for a trial? And I was like, this is very weird, very, very weird. And I went to the trial. I was very confident when I got there. And I remember that net session till this day, because it was just the first time I let go and showed off all my skills that I knew I had without any worry about anything else. And then I made it into the team. And then, 2 years later, we're champions in 2019. And I got a chance to be a part of that. And that all just stemmed from writing something down in a positive way, confidently, and then you start believing it. So they're the kind of skills that I'm figuring out now, and trying to take them forward into another level, whilst I'm taking my game to another level right now.
That's unreal. Have you heard of Joe Dispenza at all?
No.
So he's an American, he's a doctor and come researcher, fascinating, and he sort of explains the science behind something like an affirmation. It sounds really dumb, saying like writing something and it happens, but how often that actually occurs. So he's researched it, and highly recommend checking it out, and also to any of the listeners, that the science behind it is that when you create an emotion before it actually happens, your body actually starts to find ways that make that certain thing happen. So his analogy is that if you are going to say you want something completely different, you want a relationship, actually loving yourself and feeling love as much as you can on a daily basis significantly increases the chance that you're going to find that, rather than waiting for something else to happen first. I don't explain that too well, but it's more so that creating that emotion, setting that affirmation, making things really clear in your mind first, has a huge likelihood that in the future it's actually going to happen. So you've perfectly explained that through the Western Storm analogy, and that's a pretty cool example. But you also mentioned at the end there that you're taking them further in terms of your mental routines. What does it look like now on a day-to-day basis?
So I'm working with a company called Mindset RX, and we just have conversations. I'm still journaling every day, but just looking at my vision into 3 years time as to where I want to be, and really, really breaking that down into little small chunks. I think, for a long time my goal was to be a professional cricketer. Well, now I'm here, what's my next goal? So just that process of goal setting is what I'm doing right now. And also things we speak about is bound nature, so some limiting beliefs that stop you from doing small tasks short term, or doing long term tasks. So the one that I said about 80%, that is one of my bound nature roles. Trying to complete things, but I always get to about 80% of the way, and then I take the handbrake off. And within my cricket game, that happens a lot. Last year in the season, I scored loads of 30s and 40s, and when I could see the 50 mark in sight. I didn't quite get there, and so just transferring these starts into big scores is what's going to take my game to a next level. And I think that's a mindset thing. That's a level of selfishness I need to learn to be, and another level of confidence that I might be the more senior player in that time, and what do I need to do to get myself over the line, and then that would essentially help the team. I think sometimes I'm very much a team person and kind of think about the team before myself, when actually if I thought about myself first, it would probably help the team out in the long run. So yeah, it's just that next level of confidence and selfishness I need to instill into my game, and that comes from, I think, my mindset and the way I go about doing just the smallest things, whether it's just speaking to a coach confidently and getting what I need, rather than waiting a week or 2 weeks and then feeling sorry that I should have done this a lot earlier. So little things like that is what I'm working on right now.
And how do you normally reflect on a poor performance or a string of poor performances?
That's an interesting question. I've actually, a long time ago, when I had bad performances, I'd beat myself up for ages. I'd be like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, shouldn't have done that. But through this mindset training, when I've had a bad performance, I've got into a really good habit of coming off the pitch and asking myself the question, was that a good decision? If it's yes, then did I execute it? Well, then no. If it's no, then if it's a good decision, I'm happy with that. If I walk off the pitch and say it wasn't a good decision, well, then that's something I need to rectify the next time. So I've not beat myself up. I've quickly analysed what's happened. I've taken about 10 minutes to sit on my chair with no one around me before I speak to anyone. And then I'm good to go for the next game, because nowadays we don't have much time in between games, so you can't really sit there and fester over your bad performance. You need to just get on with it and learn from it, and you've got a training session in 2 days' time anyway. So just getting into that habit is a really good skill that I've picked up over time.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. So being able to actually move on really quickly, but the simplicity of assessing, was it a decision or an execution issue? And that's pretty much as simple as it gets when it comes to a game. And you have control over the decision, but the execution sometimes isn't always as good. But if you're in a game and the heat's on, you're under pressure, and it may not be for you personally, it could be a team-based thing. So say Western Storm, it's the final, you've gone into bat, you need 60 or 40 to win.
Yeah.
How has your mental routine evolved to actually help you focus on what's important in that moment and get the job done for the team?
Yeah, so working on those mental routines, I've got a nice little process now of, once you've played the ball, I use the white line on the side, so the crease line on the side, and as soon as I step over outside of it, I kind of just stop thinking, kind of reflect and just chill out with what's just happened, and really just slow down my thinking. Maybe it's a couple of deep breaths, and then I don't cross that line back over until I'm nice and clear that all I need to do is watch the ball again. So that process, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it has been, and that kind of just sucks up the pressure of the situation. I don't actually allow myself to then think about the pressure in that situation. It is very difficult. I remember kind of similar, being in the semi-final with Western Storm. I think I was in with Fran Wilson and in 2018, and I think that was a very similar scenario. And I didn't deal with that pressure very well at that time. Everything was very rushed. I think I remember just shaking a little bit. Was the first time I had batted in that whole competition after facing probably only 6 balls in total in 9 games. So it was a tough situation, but having those routines I think are really important to just suck up your pressure and focus on what needs to be done, which is watching the ball and hitting the ball. So they're some of the routines that I'm working on in training and going forward to make them a lot more smooth.
That's great. And so those routines, are really important within a game, but I know we've both been there and we've discussed this a bit. It's all well and good being able to stick to your routine, but there's usually one extra little element to it, which is not entirely in our control, but it's the ability to actually let go of control in the first place, to let go and to actually trust your skills. So like what I've found is I can stick to my routine. It's actually fairly similar to yours, and being able to, okay, switch on for this sport, but the ability to actually truly let go of the need to control of what's happening around me and just watch the ball and play with absolute freedom is something that's really hard to do and really hard to find. And in the past, I've found that it was just luck. Some days it would happen, some days it wouldn't. But since I've learned, there's actually quite a few things in between that help me get there. Have you found any, firstly, have there been any issues with yourself in finding that freedom and that flow? And have you had any strategies that have helped you actually just let go?
Yeah, I think that's a really big one. People often forget that the relaxing part of switching off doesn't just happen. You actually have to practice it. And also, you know, I hear a lot of coaches also say, yeah, just relax, just trust, like let it flow, all this kind of stuff. But it doesn't actually just happen overnight. Like you can't just be in a cricket game and all of a sudden you relax. And I think the more I've understood that, the more I've understood that your outside life out of cricket is really important to practice those things. I've always been a type of person who's been go, 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 do this, do that, need to tick off this, need to do that kind of stuff. And, you know, that was very similar to the way I played. It's like, yeah, next ball, next ball, next ball. So I've really learned recently, especially lockdowns forced me to do it as well, is, you know, a bit of meditation, bit of yoga, even simply just reading a book or going for a walk without any headphones or anything like that, just really slowing down. And it's probably not even that slow, it's probably just at normal pace. And so for me that feels really slow, but if I can take those skills in, okay, this is what slow feels like, I can take that into my game and actually slow down. So the process of breathing, for example, you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and you repeat that. And if I just done that once round in a game in between, that's actually slowing down, but it's probably just normal pace. And I think that's a really important skill to be practicing that kind of stuff off the field. Because yeah, as I've been training this last week, having just done that, I'm a lot happier batting, and you know, I'm surprising myself the amount of times I'm hitting the ball over mid-off, for example, right now. You know, just little things like that is just a bit more natural and a bit more in that flow state. So yeah, it's something to really practice off the field.
That's awesome. That's really fascinating, actually. So it sounds like you've managed to tie together how you are as a human, basically, and how that affects how you play on a cricket field. Whereas in the past, it's always been like, oh yeah, trust, just let go, you'll be fine. We'll do X, Y, Z on a cricket field, but you don't really pay attention to what you're doing for 99% of your day otherwise. Yeah. And it's really similar to what you're saying about how you never finish a song as well. And those little things and behaviours that you notice. I've never actually thought about it that way, and that's really cool. But also, in terms of when we're talking about the two different, so you've got your cricket person and Naomi off field, how do you go about separating what we call a persona from the person? Because it's really easy to get your identity caught up in I am a cricketer, whereas rather than being I'm a person that plays cricket. And do you find that that sort of mindset has limited you in the past?
I think that's an interesting balance to try and think about. For a long time, I wasn't a cricketer, but I was a cricketer. I wasn't a cricketer for most of the week, and then on the weekend I'd be a cricketer. So for a long time it's been the other way around, and now I'm trying to go the way around that a professional cricketer should be, is be a cricketer most of the time, and then try and do something different to switch off from that whole life of being a cricketer. And I think at the moment it's been quite easy to do that through lockdown, you know, we've got so much downtime to kill. So, you know, just little things that I really liked before I was a professional cricketer was, you know, coaching. I liked coaching younger girls, and just passing on what I've learned from the game and my experiences, but also, you know, I facilitate that by reading and learning different strategies and different techniques and things like that. So that's kind of me off the field. And I just like learning, like mostly like sports science stuff, the psychology of things, the biomechanics of fast bowling is something that I'm really interested in as well. You know, so just learning that and then being able to kind of put that into practice when I go and play cricket, but also when I'm coaching other girls, that kind of separates me as not just a cricketer. But sometimes those lines get blurred because when I go and train, I'll start thinking about all these things that I'm learning, and it's a bit of, I need to just then relax and let the coach do their job and concentrate on what I need to do, and that's it. So, but yeah, it's an interesting balance. I'm sure when the summer comes, I'll have to figure that out a little bit more.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think a lot of people say, oh, you just shouldn't value yourself on your performance. It's just a cricket game. But at the end of the day, if you dedicate most of your waking hours, and even when you're switching off, you're reading about sports psychology or coaching, or it's all in the same area, it's easier said than done to actually be able to detach yourself from being a cricketer, if that makes sense. So, like, I know a lot of people, especially here, our the well-being scene is all about, like, when you're not a cricketer, like, you've got value outside, which we all know we do, but at the same time, when you dedicate a lot of your time and effort towards pursuing a particular goal, it's really hard. Then if it's not going well, of course you're going to feel bad about yourself. Like, I don't think it's realistic to be like, oh, that's fine, it's just my cricket, and then I'll carry on. But there are certainly ways, and it sounds like you've got really good awareness of when to switch on and when to switch off. And have you found in lockdown that there's been anything in particular that's helped you switch off more?
This might sound a bit different to most, but actually just watching TV is helping me switch off. I never used to watch as much TV as I've watched before. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but it just shows that I can sit on the sofa and not get fidgety, that I need to do something else, and actually be present in watching a series. I think, you know, that might not be the same for most people and they might do that quite naturally, but for me, I'm always just fidgety and trying to do something. So that process is actually a good one, and I just need to sometimes remind myself I need to do all my other things first before I sit down and watch a series on Netflix. But I think that's that's a really good one for me. But also I've got into walking a lot as well and putting a podcast on. So most mornings I'll go for a 45-minute to an hour long walk with a podcast, and that kind of helps me just get some fresh air and breaks up my day and chills me out and have my own space when I want to.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm actually exactly the same. I've never watched, we're not even in lockdown anymore, never watched as much Netflix as I have, but it's actually my way of switching off, and I think it's a good thing. So traditionally, like, I stop watching TV, I don't binge watch, it's not constructive, but both of us, I suppose, we're both along the lines of probably being more of an overtrainer than an undertrainer. And it's funny, again, that ability to actually sit still. Don't, like, I've been trying to, like, not go on your phone, don't have 3 different things going on while watching a series, just like be still and engage, be present and watch it. So it's a lot harder said than done.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I started watching a series just yesterday and I put my phone on and I was like, I've just missed about 15 minutes of this show. I need to rewind it, put my phone down and actually watch it. So it is a hard skill to just sit and just do one thing. But I guess that's, you know, that I'm sure that will pay benefits in the long term in some form.
Well, I think it just comes back to what we were talking about earlier. Your everyday habits and what you do in life actually does affect you on field, but it also affects your relationships and everything else. Like, literally being able to sit still not be distracted and engage in something. It's the same as, say, having this conversation. We need to be really present with each other. Or if you're talking to mum or dad, and being really present and still and actually engaged. Like for me, that's just actually embracing living. Like it's being here, not thinking in the future and the past all the time, but embracing what you have in front of you and actually enjoying it. So who would have thought Netflix is personal development?
Yeah, don't take my advice all the time though on that one. Get
I'm not
sucked
sure
in.
my parents would like that one either. But and you did mention coaching though, and I just want to sort of transition into more of a leadership discussion. And so you've done a fair bit of coaching, especially for someone that's quite young. How have you, like, what are the common traits have you found in, if you're as a coach, the players that you're coaching, what are the common traits that you've seen and be like, this is key, if you keep this up, that's actually going to take you a long way?
Oh, that's a tricky question. I think the kids that come in with just having fun, I think at the moment there's so much out there in terms of technique, this pathway, that pathway, I need to do this, I need to do that, from a very, very young age. And I think kids have forgotten how to have fun in a physical sense, because they get their fun from technology these days. And when I see the kids that don't use technology as much and come in to have a net session and we just play different games and smiling and have fun, their skills are 10 times better. And that's the same advice you'd give to a professional cricketer, is just to have fun and enjoy it and play with a smile on your face. So that doesn't change when you're a kid. And I think we have to be really careful as coaches that we don't force them into pathways too quickly, or put pressure on them too quickly. Just let them explore and let them have fun, because the reasons, say for me, why I might be a bit more agile than someone else or move a bit quicker, is because I had the chance to explore different sports and do different things and pick up those kind of skills. But right now, sprinting, for example, is becoming a massive one to teach in cricket, and everything's very linear and very samey and technical. And I just think, if you want them to run fast, just play a game and let them run fast, or play a relay race or something. So I think that if we can just make sure kids have fun whilst doing some basic technical work, then I think that's something that should stick for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I could go down a whole different path in terms of agreeing with you on the whole physical training and how it's all a bit linear and box ticking. But I think, again, that reflects what the professionalism, probably the negative side of professionalism. It's all become quite robotic, and integrating that idea of fun. And that's the whole reason why I've started this, and trying to bring back humans and the human side of performance, basically, and that fun element. And you're also the captain of Middlesex Cricket Club. I know everything's changed a little bit in terms of the structure in domestic cricket in England now, but as a captain, how did you then bridge the gap between, okay, I'm a coach, I'm seeing that fun is a biggest element here, but now we're in this in-between half semi-professional, serious environment. How do you bring fun into that environment to get the best out of your players?
I think for me is just having, when we have training sessions and, when I all have conversations with various coaches, I personally, as a player, like challenges all the time. So, and I don't think no other player wouldn't like a challenge. So I think that part of training, just constantly putting something on the task at hand. So whether it's, the losing team does a dance at the end, or sings a song, just putting little fun things at the end of what your actual skill you're doing is anyway. It should always be there, because we're all athletes at the end of the day. We're all competitors. We want to win. So if you just put that kind of challenge on a game where you picking up the ball, and if you fumble you lose a point, and so on, things like that, I think you'll get the natural balance of fun and executing the skill at hand. And then you can have conversations about, well, just concentrate on the process of picking up the ball before you throw the ball, and you'll probably score your point. So, you know, and you have that fun and banter between the teams. So I think the more you can just create games whilst executing high class skills is the best way to do it.
That's unreal. It's quite interesting you say that, because I've seen something really fascinating this week where you've got the top level of big training where we have 6 Australian contracted players, so like Elise Perry, Meg Lanning, like big names. And then, so I trained with them in the morning, and in the afternoon go across and coach some under 16s. And the difference was that, like, in the morning, it was a lot of fun, enjoyment. It was actually like, oh, let's see who can hit the stump the most. We've got a few big characters. Everyone's laughing. It's game-based. It's competitive. And then you go across the road and you see some of the old school sort of parents training, which is not their fault. That's all you know. And I'm sure they're doing the best they can for their kid. But it's like, oh, you've got to take this seriously. You've got to watch the ball. Like, no, then you see the parents talking to their kids about how they should have done this, 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 this. And it's actually heartbreaking, to be honest. But I'd just love to be able to show, like you said, what are you doing with Middlesex and what you're doing with a 10-year-old kid is almost the same concept. And it's like, yeah, we're working hard, we're developing skills, but let's try and create a culture where it's around fun and competition and actually enjoying yourself, because at the end of the day, it is a game that's meant to be enjoyed.
I think there's a time and place to teach the technical side of stuff. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is, you know, you would have to spend some time as a young kid learning the technical elements of it, but don't spend too long on it. Just get it done, explain to them, and then put it into practice, I think, and then remind them of that skill that they're learning even in the challenge. So then it doesn't feel like it's too much pressure to get it 100% right. As long as you get a bit closer to that goal, that's the main thing.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. So it's breaking it down into what you're doing when, but then bringing it into that competitive environment. Now, you've also had the opportunity to work under Trevor Griffin, who's had a lot of success with Western Storm and over here in for the Sydney Thunder as well. What do you think makes him a really good coach?
I think the things we've just spoken about, he's someone who's quite calm and fun, creates challenges all the time. He gets the best out of you as well. Like, he tries to understand you as a human being first, and understands how you work, and then translates that into your cricket. So, you know, it's been maybe 2.5 years since I've started working with him, and you know, our relationships has only got better and better. And you know, I feel like I could go to him for anything, whether it be cricket or off the field things. And I think that's a really important attribute to have as a head coach, because then you are able to balance all those different personalities in the team and understand what you need at the right time. And I think that's something he's very good at, and there's no pressure, whether you do well or you don't do well. There's just no pressure. He wants you to be the cricketer that you want, that he can see in you and that you want to be. And I think that's the biggest thing, being a head coach, that he has to offer. So I'm really looking forward to just continually working with him through the summer.
That's awesome. And for you personally, you've talked a bit about the increased professionalism. You're a very hard worker. You like to cover all facets of the game. How are you planning on keeping that joy and that fun element in your day-to-day training, as once lockdown's done, you're going to go full into a massive summer of professional cricket, and when the challenges hit, what are your plans on maintaining that perspective and that enjoyment?
I think I've got a massive goal at the moment, and it's rest and recovery. I think any time I can just relax and not do anything, that's going to be the biggest game changer that I can have in the summer. You know, things are going to get busy. There might be appearances in between. There might be Zoom calls. There might be this. And actually, the challenge for me is to say no more than I say yes, and just relax a lot more. You know, I've been forced to relax right now. I, you know, just found out I had a stress fracture about about 6 weeks ago. So all these things I've like had to just chill out and learn how to relax, and I'm seeing the benefits of it. So that's my biggest thing, and all the girls around me are all on my case to just make me sit down and make sure I eat properly and do all those kind of boring things. And I think if I can take that into the summer and find some quiet time in between, I think that'll be my biggest success.
That's unreal, and that's really good awareness, because most people that are tend towards overtraining, it takes a long time to work that out, and it sounds like you've actually put that into your performance plan. So it's not just, I need to do that, it's actually a genuine part of your plan.
I find it quite funny how it's in my performance plan as like one of my goals. I'm jealous of. I'm jealous that you get to rest and recover. I'm like, I'm not jealous. This is hard work for me. It's a battle right now just to not even do more than what my program says. We'll see how that gets on. I'm sure I'll slip into an extra session in the week very soon, but we'll see how it goes.
Love that. So a bit of a curly question. We just got a couple more to finish off. What's your definition of high performance?
Definition of high performance, I think it's something that a lot of people say is just consistently doing the little things every day. So things that are important to you. So for me, journaling and some form of switching off are two really big things that I need to do every day, and I am guilty of not doing them every day, but they are the biggest game changers for me. So just consistently doing the things that are really important for you every single day, without like they are non-negotiables. You just need to do them every day.
I love that. And how would you define success?
I think success is just having fun with whatever you've chosen to do with your life. If it is being in the office and doing an office job and you thoroughly enjoy that, well, then that's success, because you've chosen that you want to do that and you're having fun doing that. So whatever you do, just have fun doing what you do, and if you don't, then you need to go and find something else and go and have fun with that. So I think that's success for me.
Do you think that sort of changed over the last few years? Like early doors, would you have defined success differently?
Yeah, I think I would have defined success as having money in your bank account, having a nice car, having my own property, like very materialistic things. I still want some of those things, but it's not going to be to a detriment of something I'm actually enjoying. So yeah, that definitely has changed over time. And yeah, I much more value how much I'm smiling every day and not being stressed than anything else right now.
That's unreal. And to bring about those, I suppose, your definition of high performance and also the success of having fun in what you're doing, generally, I truly believe you want to bring your best self to your days, so day in, day out. It's about bringing, like, if you can be more and be your best self more, then all the other stuff starts to look after itself. So who would Naomi Dattani be at her best?
Someone who just, say if it's on a cricket day, I'm walking onto the cricket field, I'm there having fun, and just, I want to say scoring runs for fun, but just that element of flowing and not worrying about what people think, and just doing it every single day, like just doing what I want to do every single day, without the thought of what that person's going to think. I still battle with that sometimes, but yeah, if I could just do that every single day, every single game, that would be a very good version of myself. And I don't think I'm very close to it. So yeah, I'm very excited for the summer.
That's awesome. And well, that's it's been great having you on. You're an inspiration to most, particularly as we spoke about being from that Asian or Indian background and coming through. And you've certainly been a game changer. And I know from the brief times we've actually got to meet, that fun, exciting self that brings a lot of flow, but also the level of work that you put into your game is something that I've not seen in many people. And I'm sure that it will take you a long way, whether it's on the field or off the field. So I hope you have embrace the idea of relaxing, especially through lockdown, and hopefully it's all sorted out and you guys have a massive summer ahead. So all the best for it, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much. It was really good to be on here. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to continue to be part of the Inside Edge project, hit subscribe or leave a comment below. We're also on all major social media platforms. I look forward to having you along next time.